Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I would like to talk to you about the Abiroid Sway COG Arrows indicator. This indicator is available on the MetaTrader Market app, and the scanner is free to download on my website, and all other extras that I will show you in this video, they are also available on my website. I'll share the links in the description box below. So let's get started. I will first add the COG indicator, the center of gravity indicator, with all the default settings. And next I will add the MA crossover indicator, once again with all the default settings. I will share all of these extra indicators. And finally let me add the main sway COG arrows indicator with all default values, and I'll just set this HTF trend align check to false at first. Don't worry, I'll talk about each of these settings later. And let me run this. So the basic strategy is this. First it will check that the price crosses the outer COG band, and secondly it will check that the faster MA, which is pink, crosses the slower MA, which is blue, and that MA cross happens below this inner COG band. By default, the default settings are price check will happen in the outside band, price check will be beyond the outer band, the confirmation check, which is the MA crossover, this will happen beyond the inner bands. And once both of those checks happen, then you will get a buy signal. And the same thing for sell. If price crosses the outermost top band and the MA cross happens above this inner band. So I'll let it run. Right there, price crossed this and MA cross happened right here, and then it will give you the sell signal. Now you might wonder that price crossed right here and the MA cross also happened. Why wasn't this a signal? So the problem with COG is that it repaints a lot because it needs to keep these COG bands smooth. So we have a JB indicator for that, which will show you what the actual COG settings were when the COG bands were at candle 0. So right here, these are the JB bands, and as you can see, for this signal, even though COG shows that price cross had happened, but when this was actually candle 0, price had not crossed the COG bands right here, which is why it is better to use JB indicator for the past bar calculations. So the arrows indicator uses this JB for all the past bar calculations, and it uses COG for the current bar calculations. I'll just remove this JB for now and I'll let it run. This is very good for swing trading because once the price crosses the outer bands, and then with COG, price will always come back towards the center, and then it will cross back the other side and so on. So right here we have another sell signal and another buy signal. So this is the very basic strategy, but sometimes what happens is if the trend is too strong in one direction, then price might continue in that same direction for a little bit longer. Like as you can see, we have gotten these sell signals, but price still keeps going up. So for that, if you want to trade for longer term trends, we can use this check where it will go to the higher time frames, and we have kept the starting time frame at H4, and number of HTF checks we can also keep it 1 or 2. Suppose I keep it to 2 checks, and if I keep this to 1 hour, then it will go to H1 and it will check the trend direction for that, and it will go to H4 and it will check the trend direction for that as well. So by default we have this set to 1 and H4, And on higher time frame it uses the zigzag indicator to find out what the current trend direction is, and you can set that period to what you like over here. And if I press OK, then it will show you currently on higher time frame the trend is bullish, which is why you only get the buy signals, and it will remove all of these bearish sell signals. So as you can see, these debug texts, they show you exactly why a signal is ignored and when that COG cross happens. So HTF trend alignment is better if you want a longer trend based trading. And I'll just run it. Now sometimes what might happen is that the COG bands are too close together. In that case you will see consolidation happen. Let me go back to JB. You can see how the bands actually were, and I'll hide the COG for now. As you can see right here, the outermost band and the inner band, when they are too close together, it is not safe to trade because consolidation is happening. In that case you can set the consolidation check right here, the minimum point distance for any particular time frame. Right now we are trading M30 and the minimum point distance is 40, and you can check using the crosshairs tool what the point distance you need. Like right here the point distance was 25, which is why consolidation check happened. And if the bands finally go a little bit far apart, like right here it's 65, the second number in the crosshairs tool, that shows you the point distance. So right here it is 65. So somewhere around here the consolidation check will stop, and after that it will allow the signals. And we have HTF trend alignment still at H4, which is why it is cancelling these buy signals. And with COG tool, I would not recommend trading lower time frames like M1 and M5 because you won't get that much profit on those time frames. So you could stick with M15 plus, M15, M30, H1 and so on. Let me show you over here. Let me go to M5. Okay, so on M5, as you can see, we have all of these sell signals, but sometimes you might also get something like this. In this case, for lower time frames it might be good for binary options and things like that, but for trend based, like if you want to make more profit trading, then I would recommend sticking to M15, M30 and so on. Going back to that, let me also show you some other settings. So far we had HTF trend alignment. Let me set that to false, and let me show you a few other settings. You can also find the current trend using moving average. So if you have this MA trend check set to true, then you can select a moving average. Like by default we have 200 simple moving average. In that case it will check if the price is above the, right here, let me put a moving average 200. So now if the price is above the moving average, only then it will give the buy signals. If price is below the moving average, then it will only show you the sell signals. And finally you can also use the NRTR support and resistance check. Let me set the MA check to false, and let's try the NRTR. And I will also, right here, these are the NRTR default settings. And with this one, what happens if the price is above this blue support line, I'll just remove the MA. If price is above this blue support line, then it will only give buy signals. If a sell signal happens when this red support line is there, then it will only give you sell signals. And I'll just run it. And if there is no, like right here it was giving you a buy signal, but we have a red support over here, in that case it will show you the debug text on why a particular signal is being ignored. And let me turn the NRTR off. So MA and NRTR are very useful when you are scalping, whereas this HTF trend alignment check, this is very useful for longer term trading. So for now I'll just set everything to false. In that case you will get the buy signal right there. Next, let me also show you the validation, the confirmation checks. So right now by default we have the MA crossover as the default confirmation check, and another that you can select is the half trend check. And let me show you how that works. I'll remove these NRTR indicator and I'll add the half trend indicator and all values default. And I'll also remove the MA crossover. Right. So with this half trend indicator, when the half trend arrow occurs, it will check for that particular bar's open price, and if the open price is below that particular COG band, only then it will allow that arrow. And for all other cases, like right here COG cross happened, and over here we have the half trend arrow, but it is below, the open is below that COG band. And another thing it will check is, once the cross has happened, it will wait for a particular number of bars for this confirmation arrow to occur. By default we have that set at 20 bars. So for 20 bars it will wait, and if the confirmation check doesn't happen, then it will ignore that particular signal. Let me set that back to MA crossover. I'll remove the half trend. And I'll just go over some of these settings which I might have missed. Okay, so this is the unique prefix, and this is the arrows distance, the distance of the arrows, this multiplier from the actual price. Now you can set the debug text to on or off. If you set this to false, then these debug texts will be hidden and you will only get the buy sell arrows. These are all the COG values, and this is exactly like the default indicator. And this is the minimum distance between the inner and outer bands in points, and this is for the consolidation check. And finally we have the actual checks. The first check is price goes outside a particular COG band. By default we have beyond the outer bands. You can also select this to beyond inner bands, in which case it will check that the price crosses this inner green band. So if you are doing very quick scalping, then you might set it to the inner bands, but you might not get very good signals with that. So I would suggest that you leave it to outer bands. Then we have this confirmation check. If you only want this COG band cross and you do not want to check for MA crossover, you can set this confirmation check to false. By default it's true, and it will check that the MA crossover happens beyond the inner bands. Over here you can set the band to beyond center also if you like, and that will give you even more signals. And if you set this to beyond outer bands, then that will give you even fewer signals, very rare signals, but those would be very strong signals. So I'll just leave it to inner bands by default. And we already talked about this HTF trend alignment. We also talked about the MA and SR. And finally, the half trend arrows. For the confirmation check, this half trend that we have, we can set the amplitude for that. By default, it will stay at 1. And this is the MA cross settings. The faster mode by default is exponential, and faster MA is 5, and it checks the close price, and the slower MA checks the open price. But you can set it to whatever values you like. And these are the NRTR settings, and these are the MA settings. Finally, we have the spread value. If you don't want to check the current spread, you can leave it to 0. But if you have, like say, if you want symbols which have the spread 15 or lower or 10 or lower, then you can set this check. And finally, we have these alerts. Once a buy or a sell arrow occurs, it will show you the pop-up alert by default. You can also send push notifications or email or file alerts. And if you keep this see detailed journal logs to true, then it will show you a lot of logs in your experts tab, showing you exactly why a signal is being ignored or when the actual cross happens, things like that. Yeah, so that's it for the arrows indicator. And I would also like to go over the scanner indicator really quickly. I'll remove the arrows indicator from here. So the scanner is freely available on my website, and you just need to copy this ex4 file in the same directory as you have your arrows indicator, and it will check for that. If you are only interested in these up down arrows, then you can keep this detailed info to false, and you can, if you are using a lot of time frames and a lot of pairs in your list, then I would suggest that you keep max past bars to 20 or 50 so that the scanner loads quickly, because we are more interested in the newer signals. So in the past 11 bars, we got the sell signal right here. I'm only using very few pairs, which is why I'll just set it back to 100, and I'll also set the detailed info to true. And the scanner will show you exactly where a particular time frame and a particular pair is. Like over here, the very first check, which is price crosses the COG outer band, this happens. So price has just gone below the COG band, and next it will check for check number 2, and once that happens, it will show you that 14 bars back this alignment happened. And finally, if it gets the MA cross confirmation, then it will show you the buy or a sell signal. Like 92 bars back, it had given a sell signal because that MA confirmation had happened. And whenever you have you make any changes in your arrows indicator, like right here, suppose if I change the slower MA period to 13, and if I change the close price, the slower price to close, and I can save this set file. Suppose I save it to 1.set. Okay, then in the scanner we have the exact same settings that we have in the arrows indicator. So right here, by default, you can see these prices and these periods. And if I load that 1.set, then it will load all of my changes right here. So you don't have to keep resetting everything. You can make your favorite settings as set files, and then you can use those commonly in both the scanner as well as the arrows indicator. These bars will show you when this particular check had happened, 20 bars back, 8 bars back. And this scanner indicator is exactly like all my other scanners, and I will share the post which I have for all the common settings in the description. That post explains how you can set and your own pair list, time frames, and how the dashboard looks, where it is placed, whether clicking any of these buttons it opens the chart in a new chart or in the current chart, and if you want to use a template. And all of these are the alert settings, as I already explained. And over here you can set the max past bars. For scanner, like I suggested, keep it to 20 or 50, somewhere around that. And all the other settings this point onwards, they are exactly the same as we have in the arrows indicator. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you consider buying it if you liked it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.